It's raining and raining outside at the moment. Feels like, whew, certainly for today, and it's become steadier and stronger. There was a little bit of a gap for some time yesterday, and then a lot of last week, still with the raining. And it can feel like that with the raining inside as well, that somehow with some relationships with others and with yourself, it's just, there are always tears and it's always raining. Whatever you feel you do, or whatever skills you have, it doesn't, there's not a sense of this meeting, this uplifting connection. And it can just be that actually there's no relationship, and it's being forced. And that can certainly be a case if you imagine us in our grid, universal grid. Perhaps there's just some people we're not destined to meet, and if we insist of being in relationship to them, it's going to be discordant, because it was never intended. Then there are relationships where we are destined to give more than we receive. And if we feel that, well, I want to get something back, or I want to get something back in a particular way, certainly with any relationship, actually have an expectation that the other can't fulfill, then equally that's going to be painful. Then there's also, and I know I've mentioned it before, but I remind myself again, there's the intrinsic pain of the human heart, where the mind can fixate that it's about a particular relationship, either self or other, but actually there's just the pain of love, and it's not necessarily easy or clear all the time what it is for you to do or be in relationship. And that's a great time to come back to self and chant. And there's a mantra I wanted to mention today, a Shabad, that was, there's a beautiful story, and I'll share a tiny bit of it. The fifth Guru, the son of the fourth Guru in the lineage of Sikhs, who was at a distance in another town from his father and missing him. And he was sending letters through to his father to say how much he yearned to see him again. But his older brother, who suspected that fifth would be his brother, Arjun, rather than himself, and he was the older brother, decided to hide these letters from his father. So the father, Guru Ram Das, didn't receive the letters from his son until, that is, Ajahn worked out, and he'd numbered the letters. So he gave, in true fairy story style, he gave letter to his father through a messenger, but numbered it and said, please put it in the hands of my dear father, and only in the hands of my father. And so Guru Ram Das read the letter from Ajahn, called them all together publicly, and Priti Chand, I think was his name, older brother, said, but father, Ram Das said, where are the other letters? Priti Chand said, oh, father, what do you mean? I think some were found in his, that's found in his jacket pocket. And he said, father, but I wrote these letters. I wrote them to you. They're not Ajahns letters, they're mine. And that's why you're finding them in my jacket pocket. And Guru Ram Das said, okay, come together now and write such beautiful, write in the way, both of you, that you're both saying you wrote these letters to me. And so they sat down, and of course, Priti Chand couldn't write in this manner because they were Ajahns words. And shortly afterwards, Ajahn became Guru Ajahn, and the incredible letters of his longing to see his dear father Guru again became Mere Mana Loche. And I'll share a link to one of the recordings of this Shabad for you to explore, and you can have a look at how it's recited. I share it with you today because it's one significant way of pouring the pain of the human hearts and the terrible troubles that are not, I pause there, they're not necessarily even troubles. This is the critical thing. They're just the pain, not just. They're just and not just the pain of a human heart. So sitting and breathing into that, and not making the way you are in relationship wrong. Allowing yourself to stop, actually. And what I've been contemplating for myself of late is not making wrong, but also not forcing a relationship to be how our minds have an expectation or a fantasy it would like it to be. This can be the true suffering is, I'll be a bit crude for a moment, unexpectedly perhaps, you know, when a little doggy comes along and starts making love to a table leg. I know it's a slightly unfortunate example perhaps, but it explains when us as human, in a gross way, forgive me, but at the same time apt when we try and force a relationship to be how our mind wants it to be, and it's just not like that. Make a particular shape in space and time. Instead, the invitation tonight is to pause, to have appreciation, compassion, as much for yourself and your own hearts as for the others' hearts. Because human beings are spectacular. We're all creatures of God. In all our terrible troubles with communicating, it's a beautiful thing, instead of being reactive. Yeah, not bad to let human tears flow, healing tears, not to deny the love nor make it wrong. It sometimes take a tissue anyway. There you go. Not to make tears wrong or embarrassing. They're one of the beauties of being alive and human. If it's possible to just stay with them and breathe, and then to make love of it, to sing from your heart. Really sing with all of your heart, till every single cell in your body is vibrating with love. Imagine that. Now that's a wonderful thing to use the mind for, to imagine that. Mere manaloche, a longing for the beloved. Talks of the little chatrik, the little birdie, just longing for the divine, like a drop of water for this tiny bird's throat, parched throat. Enjoy the poetry of that Shabbat, of those verses, and I'll share some details of it so that you can have a listen. But with all of these things, experiment with your own voice, because it is through having the courage of calling in the courage of sounding like yourself, whatever mind thinks of that, vibrating your own voice, that the healing. So sure, listen to the Shabbat, but equally risk making the sounds with your voice. Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam.